Narcissistic personality disorder is often perceived by many people as individuals who are extremely self-confident, who see themselves as very important, and so on. But at its core, there is actually a deep sense of inadequacy. And this inadequacy is what drives them to such behaviors. For example, a person who boasts excessively, believes they deserve admiration, maybe even admires themselves, and expects the same level of attention from others. Yet when they experience a setback, when they don't receive that mirroring from others, when they are blocked or not validated, they can suddenly become shy, withdrawn, and overly sensitive. One of the main features of narcissists is their need to be the center of attention, more precisely, to be someone who is admired. So when this need is not met within a social group or in their close relationships, they may become dismissive. They stop considering others. They think they are entitled to everything. For instance, they stand in a line and expect special treatment. This expectation appears in many areas of their lives. They believe they deserve favoritism, and when it doesn't happen, they feel wronged. At that point, when their need for admiration is not satisfied, they begin forming fantasies to soothe themselves. For instance, one day I'll become a great musician. I'll win that award. I'll write a book and receive the Nobel Prize, and so on, imagining themselves shining in the spotlight. These fantasies help them relax because, even in their imagination, they remain the center of attention and the object of admiration. They are constantly driven by this desire to be admired, and they cannot establish true emotional reciprocity with others. Let me give a simple example. When you talk to a narcissistic person about how they build relationships, you eventually realize that, in their view, everyone else is flawed. They may even display a kind of fake modesty. But when you look at the conclusion of everything they say, the message is always the same. I am the great one. Even when speaking to you one-on-one, the hierarchy ends with them above you. Ultimately, the underlying message becomes, let's love me together. This is a defining feature. They relate everything back to themselves. They think in a self-centered way, and therefore cannot attune to others' emotions. They struggle with empathy. They constantly work on ways to reinforce admiration for themselves. For example, during a conversation, they may suddenly turn the topic to something completely unrelated, just to say, I have 2 Porsches, 3 houses, a place by the Bosphorus. Somehow, they always circle back to these points, because behind this there is also fear. That sense of inadequacy makes them draw a psychological boundary around themselves. They don't want anyone to get too close emotionally because they fear their inadequacy will be exposed. This feeling is usually unconscious. Consciously, they see themselves as highly competent and significant. Their knowledge tends to be superficial. They can speak impressively, but only in headlines. When you look deeper into what they have actually achieved, you often find emptiness. Still, some narcissistic individuals can channel their need for admiration into achievement, and this can lead them to success. We are describing these traits in an exaggerated, caricatured way. Not every narcissistic person is completely incompetent. On the contrary, this sense of inadequacy can drive some of them to become highly capable. But because their main goal is to be seen as admirable and important, they may lie or manipulate. For this reason, in both their thinking and their actions, the likelihood of distortion or deceit is quite high.